everyone. Welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and along with my fellow hirsute, husky, handsome, homorific, what are some other H words that describe how
We always
lovingly
use
I feel about you
huggable.
all? Huggable, yes, huggable is always a great term. I feel like, we have our standard four H's, but like there are more H's we could
Oh
put
yeah.
on. We're really excited to be back with you all. We've been on hiatus for just a little bit. It has been a busy end of summer, inching toward fall, but we're super jazzed to be back with all of you to talk about Beetlejuice. Seems like every water cooler I've been to at work this week, everyone's talking about this movie. Really just excited to jump in and hear what y'all think. But before we get to that, let me introduce you to aforementioned co-host that I so love to do this show with. Jim Pugliafico, as usual, is here with us in the virtual studio. Hey, sweetheart, how's it going?
It's going good. I'm glad to be back at it. Talking about a new movie today. This one should be fun to talk about. It's a fun movie franchise now. I guess 2 movies makes a franchise. I don't know, but yeah, there's probably more stuff too that I don't even know about. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one with you guys.
Awesome. Well, glad you're here, babe. Also very glad to see the redoubtable William Lindis here with us as well. Hey, Will, how are you?
Hey, doing rather well. I mean, it's good to be here with y'all. We've had a chance to sort of step away and see a few movies since the last time we've done a review. This is a big one to come back to. We've had a lot of people weighing in on this one. I've seen a lot of people, good, bad, in between. The feedback seems to be all over the board on this one. So I'll be interested in hearing what you guys think. Be interested in talking about this one. And I'll also be interested in plugging the musical, which I think more people should watch than probably have, because Beetlejuice the musical is also pretty rad.
Nice. Yeah, this is... Go ahead, babe.
I was gonna say I haven't seen it, but yeah, that's good.
No, I haven't.
Say, Jim?
I'm always up for a musical, and who knows? I mean, maybe musical will be just the right spin on the property that maybe we'll talk about it more. But like this is the end of summer movies, basically, right? This is, I don't know if this counts as a summer movie, but it's coming out like the week after Labor Day. I guess we could kind of count it as a summer movie, but blockbuster season is kind of coming to a close, maybe? I don't know.
It's kind of a bridge, because if you look at the schedule of what's coming up this week, Beetlejuice and The Front Room, which is a horror movie, comes out. Next week, The Killer's Game, Speak No Evil. After that, we're going to have Never Let Go. After that, every week, Bagman. If you look now, between now and October, there's something kind of like dark or horror themed. This movie feels like it's sort of like an archway between summer and
fun
October.
and horror.
We got a big blockbuster. We've got something fun for the whole family, but also we're starting to get into spooky season. So yeah, I think this is probably pretty well positioned.
I agree. Well, we have a whole lot to talk about. Before we get too far into that discussion, I just wanted to say welcome to our listeners. See a few of you have jumped on already. Feel free to join us in the live chat. Share your thoughts as we share ours. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're listening through the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., YouTube, feel free to drop us a comment on our Twitter at MB Podcast, or comment on the video recording on YouTube, or however you like to get in touch with us. We want to know what you think about this film as well. Just because you're listening after the live recording doesn't mean you don't also get a voice. Everybody gets a voice on this show. Jim, Will, are y'all ready to jump into our movie discussion for this week?
Yeah, I've got my handbook for the recently deceased open. I'm ready to, go beyond the black and white, twisted, warped walls and glowing green lights to find out what's on the other side of this segue.
I've been listening to my Harry Belafonte and Richard Harris and Donna Summer, songs. So yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Well, I've got my Beatles all juiced. It's all in a jar, chilling in the fridge for someone to drink. Not me, but someone can. So let's go ahead and get this thing started here in just a sec. Just a quick reminder before we jump in. Unlike other shows, casting no shade at anyone in particular, but when we say we're going to talk about a film spoiler free for a little while, that is exactly what we do. So if you haven't seen Beetlejuice yet, but you're kind of curious what we think, this is a safe space for you. Let me draw a heart symbol with my fingers. We love you. We will protect you, and we will give you fair warning before we open things up to spoilers, so you can hit pause, step away, do whatever you need to do. Just be sure to come on back to the end of the show for plugs. You're not going to want to miss those. But all of that said, here we go. Our discussion of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. All right, Jim, kick this one off for us if you don't mind. What are we talking about this week?
We're talking about a new film called Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, which is a sequel to a film that came out way back in 1988. Can you believe that? Like, it's like late 80s. The original Beetlejuice movie by Tim Burton. Tim Burton also directed this one. This one has some of the same cast, but some new faces also. Of course, it has Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, Winona Ryder as Lydia Dietz, now fully grown and an adult in this movie. This one has Catherine O'Hara, who I always love in anything she's in. I think she elevates just about anything she's in. You get Willem Dafoe here. Jenny Ortega is in this one, and we'll talk about some of these performances too as we get going. But let me give you the non-spoilery summary, because as Brad said, when we tell you we're not going to spoil anything, we're not going to spoil anything. That is the truth. There's no need for fact checking on this fucking show. I'm just telling you right now.
William Lindis, you have 1 minute to respond.
Look, I'm hot mic'd right now, and I'm probably going to say some offensive things about immigrants, and I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, say whatever you want, because just let people.
No consequence.
Right. Throw some shit out there.
For context, in case you're listening to this episode 8 years from now, and you have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are debating live right now while we're podcasting.
Yeah.
So that's where some of that is coming.
And I don't know why I cast myself as the Trump of this podcast.
I don't know either.
Yeah, well, that's not really like you. That's total role reversal for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Somebody has to do it.
Jim, you were telling us with a spoiler-free promise, of course, about this film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Here we go. So after a family tragedy, 3 generations of the Dietz family return home to Winter River. Still haunted by Beetlejuice, Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter, Astrid, accidentally opens the portal to the afterlife. So I said this one's directed by Tim Burton. Where did I get Miller? What the heck did I get Miller?
Miles Miller, one of the writers.
Maybe.
Probably.
I don't know. That's weird. Tim Burton. Maybe I just got haunted by Beetlejuice there for a second. This one is a sequel very much in the flavor of the original film, I think. It had been a while since we had seen the movie, but Brad and I went and watched some recap videos before we went in to be reminded, because it has been 30 something years, 35 years, 36 years since we got the first movie. And I have to say, look, I think fans of the original Beetlejuice movie will love this film. Will at least like it, possibly love it. There's a lot of callbacks here. The same feel, same character, same kind of zaniness. A blend of silly comedy and kind of soft horror in here. But yeah, the same hijinks by the characters. Unfortunately, I mean, look, there are movies that I think are well executed, that just don't resonate maybe with my sensibilities, kind of as a movie watcher. Um, maybe I'm just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just at a point in life where I don't know. I didn't really vibe with this movie, but I could recognize a lot of it. I think it's good. I think it's good filmmaking. I just don't know story wise if it's something that kind of draws me in, and
Mm.
character wise. There are some characters in here, like I did really like Jenny Ortega's character Astrid. I liked there's another character in here. I think his name is Jeremy. Is that right? Is that the kind of her counterpart in the film, uh, played by Arthur Conti, who I really liked. Kind of their chemistry's an overused word, but I did like the scenes that they had together. Um, and as I said before, I think Catherine O'Hara, you put her in anything, I think
Mm.
she's smart. I think she actually had some of the more effectively humorous stuff to do in the film, just with her little barbs and sarcastic wit. But otherwise, it just didn't float my boat. It's not a movie. Look, if a third movie comes out, and I'm not going to say the title because you know what happens if you say the title of the third movie.
Oh, please don't.
Um, no. We'll probably watch it to give you a review on this on Movie Bears podcast. Hopefully, we don't have to wait another 30 something years, but we'll see how this movie does. But look, like I said, I think the film is fine. I think fans of the first movie are going to love it. I see a lot of people, like a lot of my friends on Facebook, go out to see the movie. They're really digging it. Look, we had applause in our movie theater at the end of this film. So there's an audience out there for it. I just don't know that I'm in the center of that audience. But I
Right.
can
Yeah.
appreciate a film that knows what it's going for, and I think this film is going for exactly the same thing that they set up in the first movie, and that's kind of the this world and the flavor of these characters, and I think that's what you got, and I think it executed it fine. I just can't vibe with the story, I guess, here. And I'm not sure
Right.
why. I question myself more than the movie. How's that?
Totally fair. Absolutely. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for setting up the film, babe, and giving us some initial thoughts there. Will,
Yeah.
let's head on over to you. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, so I mean, this is definitely there's been this trend lately with these movies sort of doing 20, 30 years later, like sequels. Sometimes they've just had more movies in between. I'm thinking like the Ghostbusters franchise has recently done
Yeah.
this. And of those, I think this is one of the better ones because I think this one had more to say and more to do. This is in terms of what I liked about this movie, I thought all the performers coming back, I liked them all. I had a good time with them all. Maybe I didn't need Willem Dafoe as much in this one. I love Willem Dafoe. He's one of those dudes you can put in almost every single movie. I think he was kind of wasted here. Um, Catherine O'Hara is a standout. She absolutely steals the show here. But I really love Jenna Ortega as well. I think she was a logical, perfect cast here. Um, yeah, I mean, I think this one is a straight down the middle, like what is it, like a straight down the middle double. I think the average person is probably going to have a pretty good time with the big portions of this movie. The problem with it is, and this is, I think, the thing holding it back. This is the thing that keeps me from going like, yeah, I had fun with it, to like, I really enjoyed it. Is this movie suffers from way too many storylines. There are. I think you can count 4 main villains of this movie, with their own plot lines and things like that. Stories just sort of start, stories kind of end, and then there's more movie left. And I really think that you could have, I mean, honestly, with as much story as this movie had to tell, you could have broken this into 2 movies worth of story or condensed the script down into just one. I will say the story that was most interesting to me was the one with the same one you mentioned, Jim, the storyline between Jenna Ortega's character Astrid and her counterpart Jeremy. I thought that was the one that was the most interesting, had the most to do, had the most to kind of say about kind of this world that they live in, and kind of how it exists and how it reflects back and how it, lives within the continuity of what's happening right now. But it was just so muddled with all the other storylines that were also happening. So I almost wish this movie was just 2 of the 4 storylines. Much more condensed. I think I would have had a much better time. But as it was, I had a decent time. And I went into this one not really excited. And I didn't come out of it like, a convert and a fan, but I ended up coming out of this one having a better time than I've had with a good chunk of these. And I think that's saying something.
Yeah, I think you both raised some really fair points. And Will, thanks so much for sharing your perspective as well. Jim, you're absolutely right. There's a lot here for fans of the original Beetlejuice to just fucking go gaga over. And I'm really excited that people get that. But Will, you're right. This was kind of a murky mess in a lot of ways. And it's a lot of like just stuff thrown at the screen to see what sticks. And I think it suffers as a result, at least for me. Movies are very subjective, right? Not everyone's tastes are the same. And thank God for that. But this one really didn't work for me. I will preface this by saying, I'm not the biggest fan of the original. What?
Oh no, I thought you were going to bring up your comedy thing again. I thought that was what you were going to say about like how certain comedy doesn't work for you.
No.
Sorry.
I wasn't a big fan of the first movie, and part of that was probably because my sister loved it and only watched it about 800 million times while we were growing up on VHS. I think by the time she stopped watching it, that VHS copy was like so riddled with like tracking issues and like crumpled pieces of the tape that like you could barely watch it anymore. And I'm glad that she loved it so much. Sis, if you're watching, love and adore you. But I got to a point where I was like, whew, I can never watch that movie again. We even watched a recap video, and I was just like, I'm getting a little triggered here. So my experience with the first movie obviously colors my experience with this one. It's a follow-up. But I agree. I think Jenna Ortega was awesome in this. And I want to talk a little bit about the writers of the film. Alfred Goh and Miles Miller are the powerhouses. Seth Grahame-Smith also helped write this, but Alfred and Miles are the powerhouses behind the Wednesday show on Netflix. And of course, Jenna Ortega is the star of that show and did a phenomenal job there. They really love working with her. And so it was great that they brought her in as Astrid. Their writing sensibilities, they did Smallville, and I'm going to bring that up again later if I remember, because there's something I want to talk about there. But I really appreciate their sensibilities between like Wednesday and Smallville. I see a lot of that DNA here, but I think they're trying to pull so much Beetlejuice into Beetlejuice. Oh, I'm not going to say it again. That I don't know. The strength of their writing kind of suffers for it, and it's also a little too like Rick and Morty for me. It's like they took the original demon character and even amped some things up more so than the original, and it took things in the other direction for me. So this is not a film for me, but this is definitely a film for Beetle people, and I'm really glad that y'all enjoy it. But yeah, I don't have a ton of positive things to say here beyond it is cool to see some Tim Burton goodness back on the screen in some ways, if not always.
And we got to see Michael Keaton Douglas on screen again. I don't know if you've been following that news, but that's been pretty exciting to hear about. Keaton. So Michael Keaton, that's not his real name, right? His actual name is Michael Douglas. But he wasn't allowed to register with that under the Screen Actors Guild because there's another actor named Michael Douglas. So he just liked the word Keaton and registered as Michael Keaton once
for Buster Keaton. Probably,
yeah,
right?
He actually said I don't remember where I got it from. I just remember liking the sound of it. So he came out kind of this last week and said, I'm going to kind of revert to like a new stage name because it's kind of weird that like I've done my entire career using this one. So he's now going by, after this film, I think for anything he's got coming up, it's going to be Michael Keaton Douglas, so that he still adheres to the SAG rules, but he's able to get his own name in there. Anyway, I just thought that was really interesting. Just because, yeah, I've seen some people like, going like, he's just trying to do this to stay relevant. It's like, no, man, it's he just wants to go by his real name. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. What's
kind
the
of like
problem?
the way it sounds, actually. Michael Keaton Douglas. That's, it has a good cadence to it.
Yeah.
There's power in a name, right?
Yeah,
Carefully craft it,
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think the bulk of our discussion probably belongs behind the spoiler jump. So, Jim, Will, are y'all ready to make that leap?
Yeah. And I'd encourage people who've gotten to this point and have not watched the movie yet. Of course, go watch it first, then come back and listen to the spoiler conversation. But now this is also a good time to go back, and if you haven't watched the first one in a while, rewatch that first one. This is a sequel, not a like reimagining or a remake like we see a lot of. So, you will want to catch back up. It's also worth going and checking out, not for continuity purposes or anything like that, but there's an animated series that came out when I was a kid that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, like I mentioned, you can look on YouTube and find copies of the 2019 Beetlejuice musical. It's absolutely stellar. I love the music in it. So it's a lot of Beetlejuice content to keep you tied over until you watch the movie and come back here and listen to the spoiler section.
Awesome advice. Thank you for that. Well, all right. Well, if you have not yet seen Beetlejuice, and you value, having a virginal experience seeing that film, this is your time to step away. If you're listening live, come on back in 17 minutes and 48 seconds for plugs. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., feel free to use the time index that Jim puts together for you to skip ahead as needed. And then, as Will says, come on back and listen to the discussion after you've seen the film. If you don't give a shit about spoilers, well, hey, you're in the right place. Stick around. But spoilers are officially fair game. Do y'all mind if I start with the Smallville connection real quick, just because I want to
go for it.
Cool. It's kind of a deep cut. I don't even know if other Smallville fans caught it because I haven't seen anyone on Reddit mention it. I could be totally off base, but so in Smallville, the Clark Kent character often wears a red like overcoat when he's like, on screen or doing his superheroing.
Emulates a cape. Yeah.
Kind of.
It's not a cape, but yeah.
And he's got like the like mop top flop whatever hair thing going on, right? All the curls. And the show was full of like sappy scenes where he's like listening to like a sappy love song of the day while he's like making out with, Lana Lang or whoever he's dating at the time. Anyway, so there's this moment in the show where like he's like kissing a girl and they like float up off the ground because he's so happy. And that's exactly what fucking happens in this movie, right? Astrid meets this ghost character who she doesn't realize is a ghost, and he's wearing a red jacket with the mop, flop, whatever curls, and they listen to a sappy song on an LP, and they dance, and they float up off the ground. And that's when we realize crazy shit is happening. But to me, that was like a direct like Smallville injection in my veins. So I have to believe it was intentional. I don't know for sure, but that was probably the highlight of the film for me. I loved that.
It's pretty cool when filmmakers throw like a deep cut like that in there, and as long as it doesn't get in the way of the story that they're trying to tell, like in the movie, then I'm fine with it. I think that's really cool that you were able to get like a little thrill, because it reminded you of something that you watched that you think is better than this. But yeah, I think that's really cool when they do that. And we talked about how kind of the scenes that they had together and their relationship in this film was pretty well done. And I do agree with that. Totally. Even though, I mean, we've seen this, girl falls in love with dead guy, like many, many times in movies, right? Did we just see one not too long ago? It was a whole movie about a girl and a dead guy.
Lisa Frankenstein from January of this year. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So yeah, but look, they're not breaking new ground here. But I thought the execution and the writing for those two characters was really good.
Yeah, that was definitely the best of the storylines. You know, we kind of danced around it in the pre-spoiler section, but here, Astrid is Lydia's daughter. That's the Jen Ortega character, and she has the same ability to see dead people that Haley Joel Osment and her mom Lydia Dietz has.
Yeah.
And she meets a boy that she doesn't realize is dead. They form a bond, and then soon realize that he has
Sad dead boy.
ulterior motives. The problem with it was it was good. I think, you know, like you mentioned, like saying the word like, oh, chemistry is maybe a little passe, but they do have good chemistry. And you do kind of like understand why she would be smitten by this boy. The problem is they tip it their hand to it really quickly in terms of kind of what the reveal is going to be. So that, you know, everything kind of, you know, hits the fan about the same time that we learn that he's formerly a ghost. And then the storyline wraps up because we have other storylines to get to. So this was my favorite. I think this, I would have loved to have seen more of this, and then more of the, you know, kind of the what's going on with Beetlejuice and Lydia. There is a storyline going on with Beetlejuice's ex-wife Dolores that maybe could have been interesting, but it was sort of crammed into the edges of this movie. And there was another story with Lydia and her guy that's taking advantage of her, played by Justin Theroux, that was just an absolute time suck in this film. Whenever it cut over to the character's name was Rory, whenever it cut to Rory stuff, I just felt myself wishing I could get to literally any of the other three.
Please
stories.
jump to the next thing.
Yeah, it was such like, it was dead air and it did nothing. And it really created an extra villain out of this human guy who, I guess, deserved the same fate as the woman who's been butchering people and sucking down their souls for years. Like, they both deserve to be eaten by a sandworm at the same time. I don't know.
You forgot one storyline, I think. Not a major storyline, but kind of a background minor storyline was the dude that got his head bit off by the shark, right?
Oh yeah,
Charles.
That was
from the first movie,
right? Originally played by a guy, I think Jeffrey Jones, who
and
was
I
a
just
sexual predator. Yeah,
I just discovered that's why. Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Yes. So that what did they do to be able to like keep the character in the movie but not have to show him? Have a shark. First of all, they only showed him in animation, I think, right at the beginning, with the shark biting off his head. So then they just show the body with actually another actor's voice doing his voice in this film. So it was interesting the way they worked around that to keep an actor who ended up being convicted of being a sexual predator out of their movie. You know what I mean? Kind of smartly. Although I kind of wish they had kept that whole storyline out of the movie.
I mean, honestly, that was a time sink too. They could have just had him die off screen, right? The movie opens up on the funeral.
Visit his grave.
You don't even need all of that stuff, right? Like,
you could still do all the same things with the Catherine O'Hara character. I think everything she did was gold. Like, she's, but I mean, again, Catherine O'Hara can do no wrong. And and here she really, like, you know, she did as much as she could with kind of a not a lot of story.
I got to tell you, Jim, you mentioned my comedy hang up thing. Catherine O'Hara in this film was great. I agree. Probably my second favorite part of the film after Jenna Ortega in terms of performances. It actually made me want to watch more of Catherine O'Hara. And I almost clicked the button to start the second episode of Schitt's Creek after we abandoned it after the very first episode. Almost.
Yeah.
I didn't.
And I'll be honest,
but I almost did.
I never watched much or any besides that first episode of Schitt's Creek. And that's not why I love Catherine O'Hara. She's been in a lot of stuff that I've kind of liked. I think I'm trying to remember what she's been in. I have to look.
Home Alone, baby.
Of course, Home Alone is the big one. And then she was in a lot of those
Christopher Guest
movies? Christopher Guest movies. So like A Mighty Wind and Waiting for Guffman and things
Best
like
in
that.
Show or something like
Best
that.
in Show, So I mean, she really excels at that
character actor thing.
Well,
Yeah.
well, character actor, but also like, improv adjacent stuff, like,
Yeah.
those movies are all improv. Brad, to get kind of into the Schitt's Creek of it all, I would definitely encourage just looking up the clip of her and David, which is the son character in that. If you just look up on YouTube, Fold in the Cheese, like it's the
Okay.
funniest bit from that show. And
Hmm.
it's so stupid, but like funny stupid. I love it.
All right, I'll check
Yeah.
it out. All right, so we've talked about a lot so far, but what do y'all think about Winona Ryder back here as Lydia Dietz? How did she do?
I think she's fine. I actually liked her character in the first movie. I thought she was great in the first movie. I don't know. She was in Stranger Things, right? She was the one and played the mom in
Yep.
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not totally on the Winona Ryder train. I'm not a rider on the
Wait.
Winona Ryder train.
Yes, you did it. I was hoping. Yes.
You're
I
not a
know.
ride or die.
I've been I've been married to Brad for too long. I'm starting to pull up his puns now without even being prompted. So, yeah, I mean, she's fine here. I don't know that the character was one I was super interested in, to be honest, because my interest was with the Jenna Ortega character.
Yeah, I think she did a fine job. I think the problem was it was so much of the first half of the movie was weighed down by the Rory subplot that she had to play a version of herself that was less energetic, maybe energetic. Yeah, she was energetic as Lydia, kind of a gothy version of energetic,
Mhm.
but like she was very much a subdued version of herself, sort of trapped in this box. I think she played that well, but it was just not fun to follow. So nothing against Winona Ryder. I just think that her character
Yeah.
got kind of shafted for the first half of this film.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What do we think about the big musical scene in this movie? I'll just say wedding cake.
We're in spoilers. You're
Yeah.
talking about the
Yeah.
MacArthur Park
MacArthur Park
dreamy
sing
wedding
along
sequence. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta admit, I mean, I think that scene would have been great if it was like 2 minutes shorter. You know what I mean? Like, I think they just like kept repeating the shtick over and over again, and to me, it was toward the end. It was a little eye rolly for me. Like I was on board when I first heard the song because I think they teased the song at the beginning of the movie, right? Don't they tease part of the song at the beginning of the movie?
They do.
Yeah.
The very opening, they start playing the opening part of the Donna
And they
Summer
do
version.
And they do two versions of the song, right? There's a Donna Summer disco version, and then there's the Richard Harris version, which was the one that they did in the scene like 3/4 of the way through the movie or whatever. I like both versions. I don't know. I think I don't know what they were trying to do with that scene. It was kind of like it felt sort of like one of those behind the music or whatever it was, like what do you call them, pop-up video. It was like a pop-up video thing for the song where they like, oh, they're singing about MacArthur Park is melting in the dark and sweet green icing flowing down, and so they have to show green icing flowing down the cake. You know what I'm talking about, Brad, like the Total Eclipse of the Heart video.
Oh, like the literal videos?
Literal videos. That's what it is.
Yeah.
The literal videos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Totally. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. It feels like the whole bit was just a setup to show like moldy green icing flowing down a cake.
Yeah, could have been reduced a little bit in time, but I still kind of enjoy. Like, I think that was a good choice of song. I think it was a good spot for the song to appear. It was a good way for them to do the callback to like the possession, to do the singing of songs through someone else's voice. Yeah, it maybe extended a little too long. And again, part of that's because you had to have all of those different character plot lines start to interfere with each other there. So again, you get rid of the Rory stuff, and then all of a sudden there's less time there. I've got a quick weird aside that I just want to show you guys. if you go to the IMDb page for Beetlejuice, I usually have the IMDb's up just so
I've got it pulled up.
you know, yeah.
Yep.
If you scroll down just a little ways, look at the photo they have for Mark Heenahan, who plays Clive. It's one of the guys who, I don't know who Clive is in this movie, but I guess the guy that's known for being inside the suit and voicing Tinky Winky in the Teletubbies.
Oh yeah,
has a spot here, and his photo is just the Teletubby. Anyway,
yeah,
it absolutely was the weirdest damn thing seeing that in the IMDb just now.
Oh gosh,
right.
Yeah. That's funny. Wow. Oh goodness.
Well,
is there going to be a third one of these?
Oh, I had speaking of a third one, I had a question about a third thing. So what is the rule around the name? Do you have to say it 3 times in a row? Or can you just say it 3 times while you're speaking to somebody with other words in between? What is the rule? Because I'm not clear. I know that when you say it 3 times in a row, it definitely works. Yeah. But
they don't. The films themselves kind of keep it a little open. I will say that it's canon, but the musical makes a big point of it must be spoken 3 times in a row, unbroken. You know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because she even fucks with him. Lydia even fucks with him at one point in the musical and goes, Beetlejuice, because I went, so she would kind of
because I say Beetlejuice. Yeah.
So
that's my non-musical knowledge understanding from the original film as well. Also, the cartoon, Will, you mentioned, I actually really did enjoy the animated series, and my sister and I did watch that together, and it was a lot of fun. But it was kind of the same thing; like they would fuck around with that all the time. So. Real quick, Santi, and if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, just let me know, has a question. Not sure about the ex-wife thing, though. Would it really change the story if they were to remove her entirely? So we were talking about the wedding scene. The ex-wife, who's like stapled together, shows up and all hell unleashes.
Is that
what do y'all
Dolores?
think? Dolores.
That is Dolores, who, first of all, Monica Bellucci, good job. I thought she was menacing. I thought she... they did a good job with her prosthetic. It looked great. So if you cut that, let's thought experiment this a little bit. If you cut this character out and you make the story more about Beetlejuice and Lydia and kind of that little, like the deal that they make in relationship to the Astrid and Jeremy storyline, I think there's something there. It does make Beetlejuice more the antagonist of this movie than sort of like a antagonist / protagonist. So I think that's part of where they would want to keep this character, because Beetlejuice is not he's a marketable brand. He shows up at Universal Studios, he shows up at different things, and you don't want him to be the big bad of your movie if you're,
right.
You want him to be sort of like a scamp, but also like not the big bad here. So I get why they did it. I just, man, like you have to pick a direction, and I think they got kind of stuck in between. So I think from the thought experiment perspective, from Santi's question, I think it does. I think the cake scene changes dramatically if you don't have the Dolores character. I think that also changes dramatically if you don't have the Rory character. I think you'd have to do something else, but that's why you write something else. You kind of figure out which direction you want to take it and get something else on the page.
And Santi, I agree with one of your other comments. You said you enjoyed the movie, but not as much as Alien Romulus compared to the Alien franchise, which I kind of agree with. I don't think Alien Romulus is a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination like the original Alien is, and I'll fight anybody on that one. But I think Alien Romulus was a good movie. Unfortunately, we didn't review it yet on the show. Maybe we will sometime. But yeah, I wish this was as good a sequel to the original for me as Romulus was to Alien.
I mean, I would totally watch an Alien Beetlejuice mashup. That would be fun to see.
Sandworms popping out of people's chests.
Yes. Mashup.
I mean, it is hard because this is a year where we've had yeah, I agree. Alien Romulus. Not that it's faults, but I think that especially the first 2/3 of that movie are solid. And so I did like that one more. Furiosa came out this year, and that's another sequel to maybe not as long of a film between Mad Max and between Fury Road and Furiosa, but still like another pretty solid follow-up film.
Mm-hmm. Well, fellas, any final thoughts on this film before we move on to some plugs?
I did look up where some of the scenes were filmed because we were talking about that.
Yes.
Because,
what did you find out?
Well, because I had just I can't remember. Did we watch this? Oh no, I had just come home from a short trip to New Hampshire, and driving through some of the New Hampshire small towns. I got kind of reacquainted with the feel, kind of the ambiance and the feel of those towns. And the scenes in this movie, which were kind of like the Halloween scenes where they're outside and there's real houses and it's not a set. I looked it up and it was filmed in a couple of small towns, I think in Vermont. It's very close to where I was. So I was glad to see that. And it definitely felt, you could feel that vibe, or at least I could feel that vibe of like a New England small town. Kind of like, for those of you who've seen like Hocus Pocus, I think it's kind of like that same feel. Like it was filmed in like a New England small town during Halloween kind of stuff. So that's my last thought.
Well, thanks for doing a little bit of legwork on that. Yeah, I was trying to pin down like where that was filmed, and that makes sense now. So that's good to know.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to a close on the Beetlejuice conversation. Definitely, I think folks are still seeing this film. I saw a couple people on Facebook that were randomly going to see it today on Tuesday afternoon, and I'm like, good on you for seeing a movie on a Tuesday afternoon. That's awesome. But conversation's still developing. But yeah, fans, I think, of the original really love this. Jim, you mentioned the applause earlier. I think folks who are maybe newer to the franchise, maybe not as much. Reddit is super divided on this film. That's all I can say. I don't know if you want the review thread, Jim. There's some good discussion about it and a lot of funny comments, but you can really tell that like there's kind of a division for folks. So.
Well, if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it's generally positive. I'll just say that. Yeah, which is good. Which is good for movies, right? And that's what we want. We want more movies. Yeah.
We always want people to go to the movies and have a good time, even if like we put on our extra critical hats on this show, not to take movies down a peg or to like, be assholes about things, but it's instead of just saying movie was good, I liked it, movie was bad, I didn't like it. We've got an hour-long show here where we're talking about kind of the what's and the whys and getting down to the details, right? But ultimately, I know I can speak for all three of us when we say we just love movies and the idea of movies and the concept of movies and the act of watching movies. I'll sometimes watch something with my husband, Scott, and I'll walk away from it having like, putting like a 1.5 star or whatever on Letterboxd. He's like, oh no, I'm so sorry we went and saw that. I'm like, no. I enjoyed going to the movies. I enjoyed the act of watching the movie. The movie itself had some things that I rated it lowly on, but I still enjoyed the experience. And that's a really good feeling for what I got here with Beetlejuice. I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed some of the storylines. I wish some of them were a little bit tighter, a little bit more concise. But I had a good time with this one overall, and I have a good time with a lot of movies.
Yeah, plus, I'm old and crotchety, and my idea of a good movie, it falls into a very narrow band these days. So I think that might be part of it.
Do you have like a stick somewhere, Jim, that you like shake at the sky?
This is my whacking stick.
This is not my movie. Well, look, the original movie came out when I was 28, 29. There were a lot of things going on in my life at that point. Movies weren't actually like the center of my life at that point, especially movies like this. I do remember seeing it, and like, I also remember seeing a movie like National Lampoon's Animal House, or National Lampoon's Vacation, or something like that, which I kind of liked. But but yeah, so I think going back and revisiting a world that was created at a time when movies weren't kind of the center of my life is can be hit or miss. You know what I mean? It can be, oh my God, how did I miss this when I was growing? When I was at that point in my life, I didn't appreciate this amazing awesomeness. Or, yeah, that's probably why I didn't pay attention much to it back then either. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. All right. Well, this is the point, I guess, where we wrap the show. We can't do that yet.
No, but
I was going to, but plugs.
That's
Butt
right.
plugs.
Butt
have to happen.
plugs.
Butt
Yes.
plugs. Yeah. We got to stick those butt plugs in to the end of our show. At the
Yes.
end, the rear part of our show, if you will. Okay, we just want to say. We just want to say butt plugs as many times as possible. But this is the part of the show where we put some things we love on your radar in the hopes that if you haven't heard of them or you haven't gotten to experience them for yourself, it might turn you on to something new. And, if butt plugs can turn you on, that's always a good thing. So let's go to Will first. Will, what is your butt plug for this week?
All right, so you can find this one on Netflix right now, so it's accessible, and if you have a subscription, air quotes, free. Really, really solid movie called Rebel Ridge. So Rebel Ridge is the new film by Jeremy Saulnier, who you've heard me talk about a lot on this show. He's the guy that did Blue Ruin, Green Room, Hold the Dark, Murder Party, some of my favorite movies. He's one of my favorite directors. So this is a new movie that I think has most of its DNA sort of in common with a maybe less lethal overall and more with a little bit more drama built into it, that as kind of like the first Rambo movie. Like, I don't know if you remember the First Blood, which was sort of man versus police. So this one is, you've got this ex-Marine. He's come into town, this really, really small southern town, on bike with a backpack full of money because his cousin is going to jail on a very minor drug possession charge, and he's going to, post bail for him. On the way into town, he's racially profiled and run off the road by some local cops who confiscate the tens of thousands of dollars that the man was carrying in his backpack to try to bring into to bail him out, bail his cousin out, and say, oh, well, this is, we're suspecting this in conjunction with the crime, so we're just going to keep this. So he goes through the legal and all the different options that he has for him until things start to escalate with some of that small town police corruption, and it ends up with a pretty violent standoff with the local police chief, who's played by Don Johnson. This is a good job in this. This is very good. The lead in this is this guy named Aaron Pierre, who I've not really seen in a lot of things. He had a small part in M. Night Shyamalan's Old a few years ago. And he's been in a few different kind of mini series and shows that I just haven't really watched. So this guy's a star, though. I mean, he's got probably the most striking eyes I've ever seen on an actor ever. There's a lot of physicality involved here. But there's also, while this is an action movie, the action takes such a small portion of this movie. This is mainly about sort of the stuff that falls in the cracks between these kind of action flare-ups and the impact that it has on him and on the people that are kind of in his vicinity and on this on this police precinct, which is very, very clearly corrupt here. Jim, you'll be happy to know that while there are guns and such in this, the main character's big thing is sort of like, he's not really trying to kill or hurt anyone. So most of his stuff is very much like, non-lethal or less lethal, I guess, depending on how you want to call it, type stuff. So it's not just one of those movies where like people are getting blown away with guns with no consequences. Everything here, as is the case in all Saulnier movies, if someone's going to pick up a gun and fire it at someone else, there's going to be a consequence. There's going to be a weight to that consequence. So this is Rebel Ridge. It's really, really good. It scratches the drama itch. It scratches the action itch in a way that I needed both of. So I'd really highly recommend it.
All right.
Very cool.
Awesome.
I just put it on my list, Will. to watch. Now, normally I wouldn't put a movie like that necessarily on my list, right? Because it sounds like a movie you could drop, Mark Wahlberg in. You know what I mean? But there's got to be if you're as positive on it as I sense that you are, there's got to be an angle or a flavor of this movie that is a little bit different, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
When you watch this movie, the one thing I'd like to hear afterwards is, do you still believe that you could have put Mark Wahlberg in this role? And I think what you're going to find is, nah, this is not this is not that type of movie, even if that's the way it looks on the tin. I think you're going to find a lot more depth than this movie would even lead you to believe. So,
what's his name? The guy from the Meg movies. What's his name?
Jason Statham.
Jason Statham. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, very cool.
Well, it's always good when we can turn each other on with a butt plug. So glad to hear that.
That's right.
It ended up on your list, Jim.
Look, that's what these things are all about. I mean, why even have a butt plug if you can't turn somebody on with it, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to bring you inside, right? So, yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Jim, what have you got for your butt plug this week?
Well, as I mentioned a little earlier, I went on a trip to a family wedding across the country, which was awesome. But usually when I go on these trips, I usually bring along a device like an iPad or a tablet and load it up with movies and TV shows and that I find interesting. Some of them that we plug on this show. And I downloaded this movie called Afterlife by the director Hirokazu Koreeda. It's a Japanese movie. It was, I think, back in 1998. So it's not a new movie. Koreeda is a director who gave us films like Shoplifters, which I thought was good, but now I've seen like 3 Koreeda movies, and the other one I saw recently was Monster, which I really, really loved, and that led me to this movie Afterlife, which kind of floored me. The premise of this movie is that, and it's very unique. I don't think I've seen anything quite like it yet, and I love movies that have have a different angle on things and different look on things and that feel totally unique is kind of the bad word, but fresh, I guess. So the premise is that after death, people who die have a week to choose only one memory to keep for all eternity in the afterlife. And they go to this place. Think of it like a purgatory, but in this movie, it looks like a school building, where they go and there's a staff there that helps them on this journey, and they have 3 days to pick a memory of their life to keep for eternity, and then the staff actually plays it out and films it, so these people can keep it for all eternity. Just a great idea and a great. Some great thoughts on the concept of, what happens in the afterlife, of memory, like what we remember and what we cherish in our memories. It's a fantastic movie. It's called Afterlife, 2 words, not 1 word. I watched it, I believe, on Criterion. I'm not sure where else you might find it. But I don't know if it's on Amazon Prime or anything, any other services, but I would recommend people search this out, especially if you like movies like Monster, which was a totally different movie, but also very good.
Yeah, there's sort of an unwritten rule, at least in my mind, that Koreeda can't miss. He's just one of those filmmakers who every time he steps up to the plate. He did Broker 2 years ago, which was really good.
Which I did see also, yeah.
The Truth back in 2019, which is a weird one because it was sort of his version of an Olivia Sayas film, which was sort of weird to see him sort of do his version of a French drama. But yeah, Afterlife is the goods. It's definitely the one that I think really carved the way for the rest of these movies. I would recommend also watching it. There's a movie from a few years ago. It was one of my favorite films of that year called 9 Days. And I think that if you watched Afterlife and 9 Days together, they have a similar plot. And it would be a hell of a kind of like a back-to-back watching experience.
Is 9 Days the one where they like show films of people's life or something?
With Benedict Wong and
yeah. I think I walked in on you watching that movie, Jim, and ended up watching the second half of it with you.
Yeah, it's like it's a high concept kind of thing. Like
yeah.
I guess that I kind of hate that term too because it sounds very like bougie and hoity-toity. But I like it because it was a unique, to me it's a unique film, even though, Will, you mentioned 9 Days, so maybe it's not singularly unique, but
well, I mean, there was
maybe 9 Days borrowed some of the concept here. We don't know.
Oh, it's got to be. There's like 20 years that gapped those movies too, So and I think that is something that we see sort of in our DNA as people who kind of struggle with the idea of kind of mortality and what happens on the other side. You can even maybe see a through line from something like It's a Wonderful Life or something like that, to Afterlife. But you're right, though. It is a very singular and a very unique look at this particular thing, kind of tying bureaucracy and with the idea of the afterlife, with the idea of, what do we value the most and how do we choose those memories and how do we relive those memories? Hell of a good pick, Jim.
Yeah, and I'm squarely on the Corriere train because I did mention that I plugged Monster on this show, on a previous show not too long ago, that I really loved, and now I'm watching another one. I just started it, Nobody Knows, and I'm also going to watch one called Like Father, Like Son. So I'm getting there.
Very cool. Work your way through it. That's great. Well, let's see. For me,
what do you got?
my butt plug this week is actually Batman shaped. So I got to tell you, I know, right? I was going through Amazon Prime the other day because I started watching a show that I loved way back in like the early 2000s. It was a Gene Roddenberry show called Earth Final Conflict. It was really good. But through finding that show, I also found a new animated Batman series that I had no idea existed or was a thing. Apparently it came out about a month ago, and holy shitballs, Batman. It is a spiritual successor to Batman the Animated Series from the 90s. They got the showrunner for that, Bruce Timm, to come back and create this show. It's produced by J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves, who did the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson that we all loved so much. And I'm about 5 episodes of 10 in, and I feel like I'm watching the old Batman the Animated Series again, but it's darker, it's more mature. They swear, people die. There are same-sex relationships. There's actually like diversity in like the different characters, and I think I may be watching the best Batman thing I've ever seen. ? I'm not all the way through the first season yet, but holy fuck, it's good. It is very much like pulpy 1940s like detective Batman. The actor who voices Batman sounds a lot like Kevin Conroy without it being like a, I don't know, like obvious caricature of Kevin Conroy. This show is just so fucking good, and I can't believe I hadn't even heard it was in development, much less that it was already out. So it's on Amazon Prime. It's so weird to see villains fucking die in an animated Batman thing that's not like a movie. But this is the Batman goods. And Jim, I think it's the balance to the 60s Batman that we're also watching right now. So I'm getting my serious dark Batman and my campy fun Batman.
None of those villains die,
and I love it.
None of the spoilers for 60s Batman series. None of the villains die. As a matter of fact, some of them go to jail, but he always lets the female ones go.
Of course.
Yeah. By the way, how do you feel about rewatching the first 5?
I'm so down for it. I was going to anyway. So if you're into it, let's fucking do it.
I would want to, you know me, I will give it a shot. I'll give it a chance.
Are you going to have a chance to do any of that between now and next episode? Because I want to hear what Jim's thoughts are, even if it's just a quick aside.
Ooh. We could watch an episode with dinner if you want, babe.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah, there's these
Yeah,
episodes are probably what 30, 40 minutes long at the
They're
most.
they're like 22 minutes, 28
Oh, yeah.
minutes, somewhere around there.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Have you watched any of it, Will?
No, not yet. It's on
Okay.
queue. Just haven't got to it yet, but it does look
Cool.
really good. Like I've seen the
Hmm.
animation from it, and it looks stellar. And it looks like they took some liberties with some of the villains, and I think that's fun. Like they took good liberties, not whatever the fuck we're gonna see from Todd Phillips next month.
I know. I know.
Oh,
Well, you know what we're gonna see. I guarantee. I know
Don't
one thing we're guaranteed gonna see: a lot of smoking.
I
Smoker,
turned
we
to
call
Jim. I turned to Jim because we saw the trailer in front of Beetlejuice.
For the
I'm like,
sixth time.
babe, they should rename that movie from Joker to Smoker because that's like all it fucking is. Like,
Well, so that would be the second one. Then the third one would be Midnight Toker.
oh, there you
Joker,
go.
Smoker, Midnight Toker.
Midnight
yes.
Toker. Yeah, I'm. There you go. That makes total sense to me. Anyway, what D Geek Will is here,
Will?
everybody.
Hey,
Hey. He says heard mostly good things, but haven't started it yet either. Other Will, D Geek Will, I think you'd fucking love it. You should both Wills, you should jump it to the top of your queue, in my opinion. But we'll see what Jim thinks, and he'll report back. William Lindis, and we can go from there. But cool. Well, it has been so much fun getting back together and talking movies. It's my favorite thing to do when we all get together like this. Really appreciate the folks who jumped into the live chat with us tonight. We had a bunch of folks watching. Some folks were messaging on Facebook. The live chat is a safe place, guys. It's not the same as YouTube comments, I promise. Well, some of them are YouTube comments, but like we'll moderate anybody being shitty, so don't be afraid to jump in. Anyway, we're going to talk about what we are doing in upcoming episodes right when we're done recording here and communicate some of that out. But as always, thanks so much for tuning in. It was a blast hanging out, and we will talk to y'all next time. Have a good night. And real quick, because I almost forgot, if folks want to chat with us between now and that next recording, Jim, where can folks get in touch with you?
You can see my movie ratings and sometimes reviews on the Letterboxd app, or I think there's a website too. I'm not sure. But yeah, you can find me on Letterboxd at JJP Out West. Those are my initials, JJP, and then Out West. And then you can also find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico.
Thank you, babe. Will, how about you?
Same here. Look for me on Facebook under William Lindis, and then you can also find me on Letterboxd at the Movie Bear. Would love for you to follow, reach out to me on either of those platforms. On Facebook, just send me a message so I know you're a you and not a bot. But otherwise, yeah, let's connect, let's chat.
Rock on. And you can find me on Letterboxd as well. We promise the show isn't sponsored by Letterboxd, but holy shit, maybe it should be. Look for me there at iBradPro. You can also find me on Facebook. Just look for Brad Harris. The other Brad Harris has his Confederate flag back up, everybody, which sucks, but at least it makes it easier to denote who is who. Spoiler alert, I'm the one without the Confederate flag, just to be clear. But please send a message first. I want to make sure you're not a clever bot. And yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.